right. Welcome, everyone. First, I'd like to request that Martina begins the recording. Oh, she was just here. Hold that thought. Oh, oh, okay, Martina. All right. All right, good. Thank you. So I'd like to call the order of the regular meeting of the MWPA Board of Directors for January 16th, 2025. Martina, will you please do the roll call? Oh, sorry. Let me start with introductions. Thank you. We just talked about that. We have our couple new members. Some are brand new to councils and some are new to MWPA. First, we have Catherine Jones from Mill Valley. Welcome. And James Andrews with Corte Madera. And our San Anselmo representative is not here today or yet. I'm not sure. We're going to see. Yoav Schlesinger. Oh, yeah. Great. Anyone else? Everyone else, I think we're all set. All right, let's go and welcome and roll call, please.
Okay, starting with Bolinas, do we have Director Molesworth?
Here.
For Mill Valley, Director Jones. For the City of Larkspur, Director Way. For the County of Marin, Director Rodoni. For Inverness, Director Donahue. For Kentfield, Director Evergettis.
I don't think this, well, no, it is working. I'm here, by the way.
Okay.
One more mic. No, we don't.
Okay.
Okay.
Apologies for the delay. Director Kurtz, would you like for me to start the attendance over? That way we can capture everyone.
Sure, why not? It's January.
Okay. Starting with Bolinas, Director Molesworth.
Here.
For Mill Valley, Director Jones. Yes, so we press it down, it turns green. You're hot.
There we go.
Oh, there it goes.
Here.
So just to state for the record, Director Catherine Jones from Mill Valley is present with us. For the City of Larkspur, Director Way.
Here.
For the County of Marin, Director Rodoni. For Inverness, Director Donahue. For Kentfield, Director Evergettis.
Here.
For Marinwood, Director Shea.
Here.
For Muir Beach, Director Murray.
Here.
For Novato, Director Goins.
Here.
For Sleepy Hollow, Director Finn.
Here.
For Stinson Beach, Director White. And Director White will not be present with us for this meeting. For the Town of Corte Madera, Director Andrews.
He's here.
Here.
For the Town of Fairfax, Director Kohler.
Here.
For the Town of Ross, Director McMillan. To inform the board, we do not have a representative for the Town of San Anselmo for this afternoon. For Southern Marin Fire, Director Hilliard.
Here.
And for the City of Santa Fe, Director Kurtz.
Here. Thank you.
And just to inform you, Director Kurtz, you can do the all for or against in the vote today.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, we might have to do that again to practice how to do the. We're all good. Do we have any adjustments to today's agenda? Anyone? Not seeing any? Okay. Martina, would you like to share how people can participate in public expression?
Thank you, Director Kurtz. The public is welcome to address the Board of Directors at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the board. Please be advised that pursuant to the Government Code Section 54954.2, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 2 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when not reporting out. For those of us joining by phone, you may press 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mark, we're going to hand it over to you. I think you have a lot to share these days.
I do. Thank you. First of all, my heart goes out for everyone in Southern California, everyone who's lost lives, loved ones, their homes, or everything that's everything. It's heartbreaking. And this truly has been weighing on me really heavily, in a different way than other similar disasters have weighed on me. And it took me a little while to figure out why. And it dawned on me, it has to do with one word, and that's surprise. We as society need to stop being surprised by these events. Surprise leads to panic. Panic leads to bad decisions. How many examples do we need of that we have these types of fires? 2003, 2007, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. That's just going back 20 years. Then we had the 1970s. The incident command system that is how we drive and organize our fires was created because of disastrous fires in Southern California in the 70s. And then thank you for Director McMillan for sharing us the video of 1962. That video could have been written for 2025. And I think you guys have all heard me say, if you want to predict the future in wildfire, look at the past. And so, and then let's look at the Tubbs fire. 1927 was actually the first time the Tubbs fire happened. Then it happened in 1964 as the Hanley fire. And then it happened again in 2017 as the Tubbs fire. You know what else happened in 1927, that same night? The first Oakland Hills fire. That happened again in 1991. And then our fire that went from Ignacio to Bolinas happened that same night in 1927. So think about all the unburned, the fact that we had that potential and how long that fuel has been sitting there unburned and building up. So we need to know it's going to happen here. And lack of action before fires ever start leads to surprise. And so if we as the leaders in our communities show that same surprise when these fires occur, we're going to lose the confidence of our communities. We cannot allow a leadership vacuum to appear right now. We as our leaders, we as Marin Wildfire and all of our member agencies, now is when we need to step up and provide that leadership. And we're going to do that by taking action now. And this is exactly why Marin Wildfire was built. These fires, they actually don't change our course at all. To be honest with you, there's nothing I'm learning from these fires right now that has surprised me, other than people being surprised. So I don't see us necessarily changing course because these are the types of events that Marin Wildfire was designed for, and we've already been functioning at max effort. I don't see a way for us to increase our pace and scale at this time. This is, if you can't tell, it's been a little bit frustrating for me because I'm seeing the same mistakes made over and over. And my wife, she said to me a couple days after the fire started, and I'm sharing it with you because it really resonated with me. She said, I wish people would have overreacted before the fires, not after the fires. These winds were well predicted. We knew days in advance these winds were going to happen. Not only the fact that these winds were happening, but how strong they were going to be. The LA Weather Office did something that no other weather office is doing. I hope the rest of the weather offices start doing this. And they put a particularly dangerous situation moniker on the red flag. So they weren't just saying this is a red flag warning. They were saying this is a very dangerous red flag warning. My wife even went to me the day before the fires happened. She goes, you know what, Mark, I am really worried about SoCal. And so how can we as a society be surprised by this? And we need to get away from the idea that fires aren't going to happen in January. 1962, that was in November. We're year round. We need to be prepared for that year round. And I do not want in any way, shape, or form sound like I'm second guessing any decisions on the fire ground or leading up to the fire ground. But when I look at existing imagery of that area, I'm not seeing great home hardening. I am not seeing a ton of defensible space. And we all know the importance of that. I've had people say, well, you know, under those conditions, D-space and home hardening wouldn't have done any good. Well, if you look at the Getty Villa as one big example, and then if you're watching the news, I'm convinced you are, you're probably seeing these isolated homes that are surviving. Scott Farley behind us, who I'm going to introduce you to later on. His father's home had not great D-space, but had reasonable D-space and some home hardening features, like the last segment of his fence is no longer wood, and his house is standing. There are success stories out there, so D-space and home hardening works. Another thing that's important about D-space and home hardening, it makes our evacuation routes safer, because that D-space is right up against the evacuation routes, right? And then I'm also not aware of any shaded fuel breaks or fuel reduction zones right along the WUI boundary in those communities. The imagery I've seen doesn't show any at all. And these fires, while they turned into an urban conflagration very quickly, they did start in the wildland. And so I'm fairly confident that if you would have combined home hardened D-space with some extended defensible space zones along the WUI boundary, things could have been different. And that's why we as Marin Wildfire need to continue with our shaded fuel breaks, with our fuel reduction zones, with our strategically placed local area treatments. But we also have to get out of the mindset that this is a WUI problem. This turned into an urban conflagration quickly. We have so many examples: Coffee Park, Lahaina, now Eaton, or Altadena and the Palisades as examples of urban conflagrations. So what we need to realize is small steps now, small investments now will make huge savings of lives and money and property values lost in the end. And we need to help motivate all of our residents to take action, because the strength of our communities is sum of its parts. And if we all do a little bit, we're all going to be safer. And then you as elected officials, and this is a conversation I've had with our fire chiefs already today happened to be the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association meeting. This can be the opportunity for us to get Zone 0 ordinances passed at all of our jurisdictions. At our last operations committee meeting, Chief Tyler from Novato actually asked, hey, can we make this part of our Marin Wildfire's strategy, is to try to implement Zone 0 policies across the county. So at the fire chiefs level and their staff, that momentum is starting to build. And then evacuations, so many repeated mistakes. Again, as I mentioned, this was a well-publicized event. So those that have access and functional needs, who have mobility issues, who are in particularly dangerous geographical locations, maybe they should have evacuated before the fire happened. And then we want to encourage our residents, if you feel in danger, evacuate. You don't have to wait for an evacuation order. If you have an evacuation warning, you don't feel safe, you can evacuate then. You don't have to wait for an order. Please leave. There were too many times 8 hours into the fire where firefighters are having to rescue people because they didn't evacuate. And then stay in your car. Please, please, please stay in your car. Most of the footage, or actually not most, all of the footage that I've gone back to watch, I've yet to see an evacuation route that would not have been survivable in a car. You would have lived in your car. There's lots of footage of bulldozers pushing dozens of cars off the roadway, all unburned, in areas that were impacted by fire. The bulldozers had to push them off because they were blocking the roadway. So think about how many people got stuck behind those cars because people abandoned their car in the middle of the road. Think about the injuries that probably happened when these people were evacuating. Most of the injuries I'm hearing about the residents, stuff in their eye, burned eyebrows, eyelashes, and burned hair, burns to their hands. All indicative of not being in a car. And I share a couple of examples with you just so you know how resilient cars are to fire. I've been hit by so many embers in my truck that I thought it sounded like a hailstorm. I've had so much radiant heat coming in my window, I felt like I was going to get first degree burns, and maybe I did. I've rolled down my window and felt the paint to see if it's bubbling. And yes, I bubbled the paint on the side of my fire engine or pickup truck. And guess what? Those vehicles I was in were no more fire resistant than the average passenger vehicle. So the message is stay in your car. Our whole goal is for people to get to safety. Obviously, we want them to get to their final destination of their evacuation, but the goal is for them to be safe. They're not always going to be comfortable, but at least they're safe. Then I think way too much energy is being put into the water system failure. There isn't, I can't think of a single urban conflagration where the water system survived. If you put 1,000 houses on the ground that are just bleeding the water out to the ground, there's no way that water system is going to survive. You could pump as much water as you want back into the system. It's going to be like pouring water into a strainer and expecting the strainer to hold water. The solution is preparedness and prevention and keeping from those houses from ever burning down in the first place through our home hardening defensible space and the shaded fuel break work that we're doing. And I know that everybody is looking at this as what is going to happen with insurance and what is going to happen with the California Fair Plan and what is the California Fair Plan's liabilities in this incident and how is this going to play out for future insurance rates, future insurance availability. It's going to be interesting, maybe the wrong word, but it will be interesting to watch. We as Marin Wildfire, we as the member agencies of Marin Wildfire, I've been in touch with many of your town managers already. I've been in touch with all your fire chiefs. We are working on consistent messaging. We are going to be increasing our outreach. We will be providing a one-page summary of consistent talking items for you as part of our annual report. Thank you, Barbara Kohler, for mentioning that we need to have an executive summary. How we've gone this many years without an executive summary, I'm not sure, but we did. But now we do have an executive summary. So we're going to have a one-pager of bullet points for you to have consistent speaking items. And then we'll have a one-page executive summary for the annual report so you can see how much work it was got done this last fiscal year. I will also be part of a panel discussion with Stanford, who invited me to be part of a panel discussion with David Hsu, who is the fire administrator for Napa and a retired deputy director for CAL FIRE, and Michael Wara from Stanford will be part of a panel discussion next week. We are looking to put another, with Fire Safe Marin, to host another wildfire watch like we did for the Lahaina fire and have a panel discussion. And we also are looking to do a Facebook Live, YouTube Live type thing of a panel discussion. And myself, Jason Weber, and Stephen Torrance from the Office of Emergency Management will be attending MCC later on this month. So we're trying to get out in front with consistent messaging, calm our public, because there's a lot of people in our public that are flat out panicked right now. And we want to get out there and first of all, ramp up the personal individual responsibilities and involvement at the personal level. But we also need to show that the work that we are doing. And so that we are working on that hard. And to that end, we just sent a Marin Voice letter to the IJ today. It should be published Monday online, Tuesday in the paper. And it's a lot of it is about personal preparedness and what our government entities are doing to make Marin safe. The two authors will be Chief Dan Mahoney, who's the fire chief for the president of the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association, and then I'll be the second author that's listed. And then Adrian Rodriguez is doing an article that will be published in Sunday's paper on, he did a ton of interviews to explore Marin's readiness for this type of emergency. So we are getting that messaging out there. But we have to keep our momentum going. We have to keep with our shaded fuel breaks, our strategically placed local area treatments, increase the pace and scale of our prescribed fire, increase our defensible space, home hardening, and our evacuation route improvements. And while I said there weren't any surprises that are popping up right now, we aren't closing our eyes to lessons learned. But We need to avoid knee-jerk reactions, because I'm sure you've seen every expert come out of the woodwork and have an opinion of what went right, what went wrong, or what should have been done, what shouldn't have been done. Some of the stuff that's coming out is probably right, accurate. Some of it probably isn't. But right now, we need to maintain our course. And when the dust settles and the emotions are gone, and we have accurate lessons learned out of these events, that's when, if we need to make course adjustments, we'll make course adjustments. And sorry for the long, but I felt it was important.
Very important. Thank you. And thank you, Director Millen, for the video. Did everyone received it? I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it. Yeah.
Almost the same footprint.
Yeah. And I think we can make that video available to
Yes.
the public.
Yes.
It was fascinating. And the fact that the language in the video is exactly the same language we have today. Nothing's changed. Yep, absolutely. I'm sure all of us have questions, and I'm getting lots of comments from our community. Is there questions? Barbara?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. You mentioned the zero ordinances. I think one of the things that this group could do is put together a model ordinance and share that with the members as well as Tiburon and Belvedere. I think it's really important that we take this up, and individual jurisdictions will have to decide if they want to, but when you come to mayors and council members, please impress on that. The other thing, the message about staying in your cars. So many people in Marin still think, get out of your cars and go on those pedestrian trails, including people on our council. So I think when you talk to the mayors and council members and also whatever panels you do, that's really important. You saw how many people in LA got out of their cars, burned, were told to run to the ocean. I mean, it's crazy. And the other thing is, for those of you on Facebook, Todd Lando did a really nice Facebook post about the water issues, that there's so much speculation that's actually not right. And he also presented that to the Firewise leaders. So I think, I don't know your plan for when you speak in Stanford, but I think talking about the water issues, that once a house burns, the water is just flowing because the pipes are broken. So people don't realize that. And so anyway, thank you for your, good ideas and thoughts. And I think there's a little different than just repeating history, because we do have climate change
Yes.
now. And all the firefighters I've talked to have said, we used to fight these fires that were like 1,000 acres and we thought those were insane. So there's a little different wave happening. But thank you so much, Mark, and I'm glad you're going to be speaking at those panels.
Yeah. And let me share with you the thumbnail sketch for the plan that the fire chiefs have to work with their elected officials. Our experts on ordinances are our fire prevention officers. So the fire prevention officers will be tasked with creating a unified ordinance that'll percolate up through the fire chiefs and then to the elected officials that would need to approve it. The major role that I see for this board is to maintain consistency for that model ordinance, because the FPOs, the fire prevention officers, has often tried to create model ordinances. And then once it goes through the public process and there's public pressure on elected officials to make certain changes, that's when we get out of conformity with those. And so I'm going to be looking to you guys to help maintain that consistency for that model ordinance.
I just want to mention that's a great idea. But remember, 1 vote out of 5 and public pressure.
Yep.
I think there will be differences, but if we start out with a model, and I still think a message from you, this board, about the importance of those will go a long way, as well as just individually working with our fire prevention officers. But thank you.
Thank you. I believe both Woodside and Moraga are 2 jurisdictions right now that have a zone 0.
I think Woodside was the first.
Woodside was the first, yep. Bruce, please.
Mark, incredible, well-crafted. Thank you. I want to put this fire code idea in the context of, in June 2025, the fire code adoption cycle starts. The state sends us a fire code, and the fire code goes to the county supervisors for their choice to adopt it or not. You can make it more strict, but you can't loosen, you can't loosen. Thanks. I can hear myself. So the county adoption, and then it goes to fire departments and municipalities. This code that you're talking about, I think it would be kind of poetic, if you will, to June enter into this cycle where the county is going to consider a fire code that'll go out to the fire districts, that'll go to the municipalities, and for adoption. You can't make it less strict, but you can make it more strict. And so I think this is the place for us to start putting into words what we would like municipalities to adopt.
Yep, and that was exactly,
Well, thank you.
that was the observation of the fire chiefs. The timing is actually really good because this is code adoption year.
Catherine?
Which Catherine? There's two.
Catherine Jones.
There's four. I'm the fourth.
Wow.
It's sort of similar to that. I understand that the state had passed legislation that created that ember resistant zone, that zone 0. And I was curious, I don't think the regs have come out relative to that. And I was wondering if when that's coming, and if the ordinances that and the code are being based on those regs that are being created at the state level.
That's the $1 million question. Those regulations were supposed to be out 18 months ago. And I think a lot of municipalities and local districts were waiting for the state to set the standard. And I think it's time for us to stop waiting. And I think it's time for the local government entities to drive it.
Just quickly, thank you, Rachel. Zone 0, totally supportive of that, and I'll help push it in Central Marin. I think it's also an opportunity for us to really get serious about on-street parking in these narrow, windy, twisty roads that we have for evacuation routes. And on-street parking is coveted by people, but you can see what happened in these evacuations where cars blocked narrow, windy roads, et cetera. So I'm game for more on-street parking restrictions, or having actually fire engineers and public works engineers tell us where the safety zone should be for on-street parking.
More on that with the back half of my executive officer
Oh,
report.
okay.
I'd like to just take a moment. The Yoav Schlesinger, Director Schlesinger from San Anselmo, has joined as a panelist online.
Oh, good.
I don't know if we could pop him up.
Hey everyone, glad to be joining you.
Thank you. All right. Other questions for Mark on this part? Julie?
I'm a Firewise leader, and some of my Firewise people have already said, well, none of our Firewise work really matters. Look what happened in LA. It's kind of like climate change where, you kind of feel defeated and taking a step isn't really going to matter, even though in my heart of hearts, I think it will. I'm just wondering, Mark, if you know how many Firewise groups were in the Altadena area and the Pacific Palisades area.
So we tried digging into that a little bit, and we've fallen off the top of the charts as far as the #1 county of Firewise. But if you think of our size, the fact that we're #4 in the nation in counties for Firewise is pretty good. We couldn't find out where LA is in there, but they're in the teens of how many Firewise communities they have for all of LA. We have 70 something. And we did not find any Firewise communities in the footprint of the Eaton Fire, and we think that there were 3 Firewise communities within the footprint of the Palisades. So I think for me, the best thing about Firewise communities is it drives communication amongst the residents within the Firewise communities. It creates peer pressure to get the right thing done, and it creates momentum to get the right thing done.
I'm hopeful that also the fire chiefs will encourage more evacuation drills. I know that there has been really low participation rates in evacuation drills, but I think the experience in Southern California really underscores how important that is. And to practice grabbing your go bag and getting in your car and experiencing the traffic and et cetera.
Yeah.
And one other thing I wanted to raise that I haven't raised with you in advance, so I apologize if you don't know the answer, but I heard over the last couple days that the Pacific Palisades fire may have started in the same location where there was a fire caused by fireworks on January 1st. And that lots of aircraft is circling around and looking with using infrared technology for hotspots. And so I was thinking, well, maybe we should standardize that. And when there's a red flag warning day, they should be flying around looking for hotspots before they erupt into a WUI fire and then an urban fire.
I'm going to really like steer away from any speculation from the origins at this point, but I do know that when it comes to once we have a fire that we've contained, there is quite a few standards on maintaining control of that fire, but I'm not sure how this is going to play out, to be honest with you.
Jane?
Yes, I'm starting my second term on council after taking a 4-year vacation. In my previous term, one thing we noticed is we kept getting mandates from the Sacramento saying put housing X and you cannot do anything to interfere with it. Okay. You could not sit there and say, hey, your street's only 9 feet wide. The 1930 law says you've got to have a 10-foot travel lane each way. Okay. And we can't sit there and say, okay, back your house up 20 feet so we can widen the road there. And I'm wondering who's keeping an eye on this special session in Sacramento so that they don't just take away more authority from local officials to plan, try and prevent tragedies like the Palisades.
Well, we definitely keep a close eye on it, but that's where I lean on our elected officials, on our councils my role is to provide information for you guys to make good policy decisions.
But will you give us a heads up if it comes on? Because unless you're looking at it.
Yeah, we keep an eye on it.
24/7.
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Comments? Others come up during the meeting? Okay. All right.
All right. And now I know I've taken up a lot of time, but I still do have the rest of my executive officer's report because we still have regular business that we need to continue with. And today is actually the real Martin Luther King's birthday. So we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that. And thank you to Martina for finding this very appropriate quote from Dr. King. The time is always right to what is right. Well, obviously he was on equal rights with that statement, but if we look at our wildfire world right now, that's very true. That first section is all the stuff we talked about with the SoCal fires. I hope you guys had a chance to dig into the annual report. Very timely that the annual report is coming out at this meeting. And again, thank you, Director Kohler, for pointing out the obvious omission of it in the executive summary. My goodness. Very excited that we will be hosting here in Marin the Climate and Wildfire Institute's day and a half convening in spring. And then right after that will be the Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force. In between it, we are going to have a keynote speaker. We've asked Senator McGuire. We haven't gotten a confirmation yet on Wednesday night that'll bridge between CWI and Task Force, and that keynote presentation will be co-hosted and co-branded. We do have a little bit of an influence on the agendas, but it really is their conferences that we are just simply hosting. When we get firm details of who, what, when, why, where, and all that, we will make sure that you are all well informed, especially with elected officials and having the type of audience that we expect to be coming. U.S. Fire Administration, I should make that a little bit more. U.S. Fire, this is U.S. Fire Administration and evacuation drills. We were recently approached by the U.S. Fire Administration to be one of 3 counties in the nation for the U.S. Fire Administration to host a tabletop evacuation drill. And we'd actually just already started planning a large-scale evacuation exercise in Mill Valley. So we are using the exercise that we were planning in Mill Valley in April, that'll be in unincorporated and incorporated Southern Marin, as what's going to be part of the tabletop exercise. And that's where I was going, the parking aspect is part of that tabletop exercise. It'll be a 2-day tabletop exercise. Day 1 will be a noticed evacuation drill. So it'll be tabletop. So it'll be one of those ones where we know where residents will have time to plan and evacuate on the tabletop exercise. And then for the day 2, it'll be the no notice evacuation. Pack your bags, leave now. And then that'll help inform us for what's going on with the lifetime exercise in April. And what we plan on doing is take all the lessons learned from that exercise and just start marching those lessons out to all the other agencies. Mill Valley had the benefit of having the Google study to help redefine their evacuation planning. And now we have Ladris AI that can repeat what the Google study did. So we have Ladris AI with us side by side as we plan these exercises and comparing their results to what Google's results are. And then we're getting all of our law enforcement agencies paired up with Ladris AI to start doing similar analysis and planning that could include parking for future evacuation exercises. And then I was also asked to be part of a nationwide panel working with the U.S. Fire Administration for, they call it the planning and operations, to give nationwide guidance on evacuations. And they keep, the 2 meetings I've been at, they keep saying, well, Marin's the one that's setting the standards for us that they're following. So just so you guys know, that's what the opinion is of the U.S. Fire Administration of Marin County. You guys all saw on the consent calendar that we are putting out a request for proposals for the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Our 2020 CWPP was held up as an exemplary model of what should be done. And guess what? It's way out of date. It is so old and so not what we're building anymore, because that was a snapshot of time. That's what we looked like in 2019. And it has a partial level of risk assessment in it that is accurate for 2019. And so everybody is moving away from a static CWPP and moving towards a dynamic CWPP. And as we were drafting the RFP for that, we realized that a lot of the tools that we are incorporating into our regular practices is exactly what we need in the CWPP. So we are rolling those tools into the CWPP. And the idea is that this will be a living document. So as projects are completed and we enter them and through Ann's team's system to upload the data, that automatically updates the CWPP. So it continues to be a living document. And the previous CWPPs have all been a countywide effort. That's why we are including Tiburon and Belvedere in the process. The way the CWPP is set up, though, is it is nothing without the data. So we have all of our data, and that's going to drive the CWPP for all of our member agencies. It'll be up to Tiburon working with and Belvedere working with us, first to include their data, to gather their data. It'll be Tiburon and Belvedere doing their analysis of that data. And it'll be Tiburon and Belvedere that will have to continue to maintain their aspect. If there's no engagement from Tiburon and Belvedere, there will be a void in that portion of the CWPP just because our funding can't go to for the benefit of Tiburon and Belvedere. However, we are very optimistic on our ability to get a grant to fund the entire CWPP. So it won't have any effort beyond our staff effort, which all the agencies will be asking every fire department to provide information and time towards CWPP. And historically, all of our other CWPPs have been funded by the grants, and none of the fire departments have ever been asked to exert any financial resources towards the CWPP. So that's why I think the way we've added Tiburon and Belvedere, and they have been providing feedback on the RFP themselves as well, I think we're in alignment with what we can and cannot spend Measure C money. And finally, I wanted to introduce you guys to Scott Farley. I know you guys have seen him virtually, but he is here for a visit. And I wanted to give him a chance to meet you all. And we're not going to take up meeting time, but if you guys want to go off into the corner and geek out with him, because we get to do it once a week. And so if you guys want to dig into any of the things he's been doing, he's here and would love to have a chat with you. And I think I'm going to kill this battery if I talk anymore.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome, Scott. Good to have you here. All right, so questions on this part of Mark's update? Anyone? And then we'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Director Kurtz. And just an outgoing note for those joining us remotely, please note that it is not the current practice of this board to provide live answers to written questions during the meeting. However, we do encourage all remote attendees to participate by raising your hand, which can be done by pressing *9 to unmute yourself and speak. To speak, please press *6. In-person attendees are invited to approach the podium during the designated public comment periods throughout the meeting. And Director Kurtz, with that said, we did have one live comment from a Steve Quarles, who stated that the latest draft of Zone 0 language from the Board of Forestry should be available, and that there are fire safe councils in LA area that perform similar functions as a Firewise community. And there are no further comments at this time.
Appreciate that update. All right. Seeing no more comments, there's no motion required. Good update. I'm glad we had the opportunity to have all that. Moving on to the consent calendar. We have the opportunity for the public to comment on the consent calendar. Do we have any public comment on consent?
And I see no raised hands at this time.
And I did need to point out that in my staff report for the COC, I have a typo and have Theo Hellman listed as a Firewise member. Theo would really be filling the high school student seat. So that's that typo there. And subsequent from posting the agenda, we have a departure of our taxpayer organization seat. So we will be continuing to recruit for community-based organization, a fire prevention organization, and our taxpayers association.
All right. Do
Can I
any
just
members
make
of-
one comment?
Please.
Sorry, you're way down there.
Yeah,
I just want to do a shout out to Theo Hellman. He is our Vice Mayor Stephanie Hellman's son. So we're excited to see him following in his mother's footsteps and glad that he's joining as a youth member for COC. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. All right. Do any board members wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Do any members wish to pull an item from consent calendar? The minutes, okay. All right. I don't know if we need to pull a, we'll just. Yep. Yes.
I would like just a clarification on item E. Mark, you discussed inclusion of Tiburon and Belvedere, and just a clarifying question. So I'd like to have a just very short discussion about E also.
Okay, so we'll move the remainder, if I get a motion to remove the remainder of the consent to calendar, removing item A and item E.
I'd move the rest of the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
We did public comment at the beginning. Yep, okay. All right, and now can we call for a vote on item A? Is that? Yep.
So we don't need to do roll call actually because Yoav Schlesinger is actually not participating remotely as a panelist. He's participating as a member of the public. So you can go ahead and just do it by regular vote.
Okay, so should A have been removed or not?
Unless board member Andrews had wanted to just abstain from the full vote, it was proper to go ahead and pull it and now can vote as a whole.
As a whole. Okay, great, thank you. All right. And so should we do the vote on the consent aside from item E? We had both motions. We had a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And there's one abstention.
I abstaining from A.
A.
As am I.
Okay, great, thank you.
And so that we just let the minutes and the record reflect that both directors, Andrew and Jones of both Corte Madera and Mill Valley, have abstained from item 7A of the consent calendar. However, they will be voting on the remainder of the consent calendar.
Great, thank you. 6A.
I apologize. 6A.
Oh, it's January. Okay. All right, and item E. There was a question?
Yes, Mark, you mentioned Tiburon. It's great that Tiburon and Belvedere have joined in. This is a countywide project. Thrilled at the addition of the new analytical tools. They're going to go into this, precede this work. This is state of the art. It's astounding. My question is on the finances. We don't have a financial plan, and I understand you're thinking that historically we've been able to get grants, but I find I think you're assuring us that if there are costs incurred, that Tiburon and Belvedere would incur a portion of the costs. And that's the first question.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks. And then the second question, and this is something, taking a look at the Measure C, the language in regards to not replacing, but augmenting. There's a word, I don't have the right
Supplant.
words here, but that we, in the county, we do a CWPP every 5 years. And presumably there are costs incurred by someone, somewhere. And if we don't get grants, I would like to hear that whoever would typically bear those costs prior to, to support the CWPP, that they will indeed bear whatever costs they would normally bear, and that anything that we augment, we would bear as the Community Wildfire Prevention Authority with our own funds. So if you understand my concern.
I do. Historically, no fire department has put a penny
Okay, so that,
towards the CWPP.
and in the event that we can't get a grant, I think we should be able to see the finances.
If we don't get a grant, then it will become a project within the 25-26 work plan.
And then we can see the finances then.
Correct.
So thanks. Those are my questions. Thanks for your clarification. I'm fully supportive.
Catherine?
Do you have a not to exceed amount to put into the budget for this item?
That's why we're pushing the RFP out now, so that as we develop the work plan, we'll have that information.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that item? All right, if not, can I get a motion for item E?
So I'll move consent calendar 6E.
And I'll second. Oh,
Okay, no, I won't. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thank you. Okay. Martina, are you good? All right, moving on to the staff reports, we have a January finance report. And I think we have Marin Wildfire, Treasurer Alyssa Schiffman. You have an update for us?
I do. Good afternoon. Just give you a high level update. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. We did get the first property tax disbursement in December. It was it's the 55% disbursement. It came in a little higher than we had budgeted, so we're projected to be about 330,000 over budget by the time the year ends. And the corresponding DSpace and local payments that we make to agencies are then also all proportionally higher because we use the actual revenue. Interest is only in for the first quarter, and it's already at 91% of the budget. So that's on track to exceed the budget. We've made some notes here whenever we can offer an explanation for any of the red. And then the only other thing to point out is that at the time of this report, we had only entered for the DSpace and local payments have been made for the first 55%. They were just printed today. At the time of this report, though, we had just entered the 3 that we were going to withhold. So we're being a lot stricter this year with the agencies. There's at least There's 3 components that they have to turn into us for the prior fiscal year in order to get these payments passed through to them. So we did hold 3, and those are the amounts reflected on this report at the time of our report. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Always good to hear that we're ahead of budget. Any questions for us on the finance report? Seeing none, take this to public comment.
There are no hands at this time.
No other comments on this. We don't have a, we don't need a motion. Oh, sorry, James.
I have one question. You're on a June 30 fiscal year? Okay.
Correct.
Yes. Great. All right, good. Thank you. All right, and the work plan.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here, hopefully. Perfect. And I'm going to drag it all over my screen first before hitting next. Oh, good. Okay, so today I'm just going to cover a few topics. One, I always like to provide updates on some of the outreach that we do. And we have a field trip coming up, so I want to make sure everyone is aware. A quick chipper program update since the season has closed and we'll be starting a new season fairly soon. Talk about direct assistance and then talk a bit more about work plan development because it is time to start thinking about next fiscal year. So the other day on Tuesday, one of the VMSs, Jacob, and I presented to the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership Group. And that was a great opportunity to talk about the data collection and monitoring program that we've been working on. This group, this board, heard an update back in September, not a super detailed update. At that time, we were still collecting data, didn't have any data in hand yet. Now we do have about 480 polygons, project implementation polygons collected. So that's really exciting to be gathering that data and really receiving it from the member agencies. So we presented to the ESP partnership on Tuesday and had a great discussion, talked about how we took a phased approach and really wanted to build a GIS program first, talked to land management agencies about what they've been doing and what's working and what's not working, learn from them, talk to member agency staff about what's feasible, what's doable out in the field when you're doing a project, collecting data, build a field app for your phone and a desktop way of implementing or inputting that data as well. And now we're collecting data. It's very exciting. We're about to have another big input of data from our member agencies. So we're doing it. And that informs our modeling and everything else. So we're really excited to get that going. Also, we have a field trip. I know you all are aware, hopefully those listening in the public are aware as well. We've been sending out a lot of emails, pushing this out on social media, walking the neighborhood and distributing flyers. We have flyers in English and Spanish and information on the project webpage as well. But we are hosting a field trip tomorrow to the Ring Mountain Fuel Break. We're working with Southern Marin Fire to host that and Marin County Parks and Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership. This project is a shaded fuel break right between homes and wildlands, as is pretty typical for our projects, and really features a lot of broom removal, a lot of broom to not look at when we go out to the project area, but we'll have some before photos. We're meeting at Indian Rock Court in Tiburon, and that's tomorrow at 10 a.m. Really encourage carpooling to avoid too much traffic on the roadways. So hope to see you all there. Our chipper program wrapped up for the season, and in the near future, you'll be seeing an RFP for contracting for next season. So keep an eye out for that and coming probably next month's board agenda. This last season included 6 rounds of pickups, and there was quite a bit of growth in the chipper program this last year. So that means there's a lot of demand out there. Super important program to do defensible space around your home. We saw almost 4,700 pickups. That's an increase of about 240 pickups this last season, and an increase in cubic yards as well. Larger average pile size. So any way you measure it, we've seen an increase in the use of this program. We also continue to implement the direct assistance program. And a reminder, this was coordination with the member agencies to get a list of high priority parcels out there with hazards that needed to be mitigated that weren't being mitigated due to, it could be lack of action from the resident, it could be financial need, access and functional needs, or, a lack of understanding of what the risk is. Our grants specialist has been working with all of these parcels, been sending out invitations
You have
to.
a question? I'm not, I don't need to talk anymore.
Thanks, Lisa. 32 are in the planning phase. We've got about a dozen that are complete right now. And this photo shows some work done in the Novato area. So we kicked off the process to develop next year's work plan. We started the advisory technical committee meetings and operations committee meetings in December. This year's process is a little different from last year's, and that's because of the changes to the JPA language and the movement of ATC to kind of a working staff level group, as was, I think, originally intended when this group was developed. The idea is to have conversations across jurisdictional boundaries and really strategize and dig into the details. And so we've started, we still have our non-voting members of the public, the Ecologically Sound Practices Partnership, the different land management agencies, PG&E, Marin Water, UC Cooperative Extension, Fire Safe Marin, et cetera, all participating. But these are no longer public meetings. All that same content is still presented at the operations committee meetings. We found last year and in previous years that we were doing the exact same agenda twice with the same presentations. And so it was a waste of a great opportunity to collaborate and think think strategically at the staff level. So, with the ATC's previous Brown Act compliant format, I was often telling members of the ATC to not talk to each other so that we don't have a quorum in some conversation that happens outside of the meeting. So that collaboration, I think, will really happen this year and moving forward now that we've dispensed with the additional process. So with that said, the Operations Committee is still a great way for the public to take part in this process. All those proposals that are submitted will be made public on our website, just as in previous years. So there's still a ton of opportunity to participate in the process. One of the first things that we did with the Advisory Technical Committee, and we'll be doing again with operations, is to dig into all those great tools we've been developing. So we've had that working group now for several months, digging into each of the tools, now talking with the different contractors, asking questions, testing them out to see how to use them for their own zones, jurisdictions. And we presented these tools again to the full ATC in January, and we'll be doing that again to the operations committee on January 23rd. So if you want to hear more about the tools, the operations committee will be a great place to hear that. And then we'll also bring that information to this board, because I know you guys are going to want to hear about those great tools and dive in and ask some questions. And folks like Scott will help with that, with those presentations in a future meeting. So next steps in terms of work plan development will be to start submitting projects. We'll be working on submitting the JPA-wide projects first to really get a feel for the core budget. And member agencies are invited to start using that web portal because that is up and running again. And then we will continue working together on all of that great stuff. This is the slide that I often share with the committees with the whole process laid out, and I won't go through it, but I just want you to get a feel for all the work that all these folks are taking on every year. A lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, and a lot of opportunities for the public to engage. So with that, I will not dizzy you with this slide for much longer, but I'm happy to take questions. I know, we see it every time. Yeah.
I'm sure. Great. Thank you for the update. Questions for Ann? I have a question on the direct assistance. Can you go back to that for a second?
Sure.
Let's see if I understand the numbers correctly.
All right.
So it was the 100 and I think I wrote down 171.
Letters sent. 171 letters sent to residents to participate
And
so far.
so what happens then to the remainder that are not, that they haven't responded?
Well, it's an opt-in. It's not mandatory for them to take part. And so as we get responses, and they're sent out in chunks. So as they respond with interest in participating in the program, then conversations start happening. Our grant specialist visits the residents with the inspection report to take a look at what sorts of items would be eligible for the program, and then writes up a scope of work for the parcel, and then the contractor can come out and do the work. So it takes a little bit of time and one-on-one conversations, but for those who are not choosing to participate, we can move on to the next folks, the next risky parcels.
And do we know of the 171 or whatever the difference of the remaining ones? Do we know that they've actively, there's some conversation with them, or we don't know, or do we know?
I think it's
Of
just
those, how many are actually in conversation?
32 are in conversation, active back and forth conversation about next steps. And so some of those letters, and I can check in maybe during this meeting if you'd like an answer in the near future, but I can check in with our grant specialist to see how much back and forth there's been with the 171, and then how many total parcels are going to receive letters this year.
I had a feeling there'd be questions. Catherine Way?
I'd just like to put a placeholder out here for the future meeting that I recall last year, our direct assistance program ran out of funds pretty quickly. I mean, ran out of funds midway through the year. And if we are doing a budget adjustment later on, and we now have heard that we may have a surplus or may have additional property tax valuations, we might want to consider adding more to that direct assistance fund to be able to serve more of our lower income community who needs some assistance in doing vegetation clearing. So I put that out as a placeholder for later.
At our November meeting, we actually did transfer some unspent 23-24 money out of admin into the grant program. So we have been following that guidance.
Yeah, and if we do have more surplus or other things that we could shift around in the year ahead, I think this is a very valuable program to meet many of our seniors who really would like to participate in vegetation management of their home and their property, but don't have the capacity.
Yep, absolutely. Catherine, you had a question?
So are these 171 a result of already inspected houses? Is that how it goes?
Yes.
So they've done and then you've determined that they are high risk and really should receive help.
Yes,
Where are
and the
they
member
located?
agencies are providing this list of parcels that are high priority.
So are they inspections that have been requested, or are you doing it geographically so that you cover all the different sections of MWPA?
It's both.
Both. Go ahead.
It's both. It's both requested inspections and our regular inspection program.
So, for example, if Southern Marin, would it be MWPA inspections, or would it be Southern Marin
They're all the same.
all the same? Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful actually to see, so I had to do the math, 127 that are not actively taking advantage of the direct assistance in one way or another, to understand if there's something we need to look at in terms of the program to make it more attractive or accessible, or what's happening. Because at the same time, when we know that we've run out of funds, but we have 124 that are not participating. There's like a disconnect between what's happening for me.
Yes, and I would also say that there has not been a lot of time that has passed. They're not all sent out at once. So I think about 100 letters have been sent out maybe in just the last month since my last update to you all on this program. So with the holidays and delays and busy people, that could contribute. But
A clarification though, that we have a reimbursement grant program and we have the direct assistance program. And so we worked through the reimbursement grant program first and then started digging into the direct assistance. And so that's why the numbers are kind of low on the direct assistance. We have hundreds of properties that were treated in the grant program. And now we are transitioning into the direct assistance. So that helps explain the decreased numbers.
All right, very helpful. Thank
No,
you.
no. Yeah, I can pull up the slide from our last board meeting if you'd prefer, which did include the summary of the regular grants program.
No, I think that's good. It's just good to keep an eye, and if there's something that we can do to help either within our jurisdictions or within the community to make sure people don't just take that information and put it aside.
Mhm.
And to help get the work done, because if it's been identified and they've been identified as potentially being able to receive direct assistance, those are areas that need to be worked on.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. No more comments. We'll bring this back for the board. I think we're set there. There's no motion required. Moving on to action items. Oh, did I open up for the public comment on that one? I don't think I did. Yeah.
And I see there are no hands at
Okay,
this time.
thanks. Okay, moving on to action items. Mark, do you want to tee this off?
Yeah, apologies for no staff report on this. My bad. But now that we've revised the JPA, it's time to make sure that our bylaws are in alignment with the JPA. And we also have an opportunity of have the bylaws been working well for us. So my recommendation to the board president is to solicit volunteers, probably about 5, to work with staff on a JPA revision ad hoc subcommittee.
Yeah. All right. Do we have questions from the board on this one?
What kind of time commitment would you envision to, on volunteers?
It's all up to you guys. No, Megan and I would work together to pour through the JPA, have any potential suggested edits from the staff perspective. And considering how well the bylaws have been working, I'm not anticipating a ton of changes. Some of it is going to be administrative, like we had just some adjusting times as far as when things happen. I bet you we can get it done in an hour to 2 hours.
I got that impression. Others who might be interested.
It would go to the exec committee first.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Bruce? We are. All right. Anyone else? Yes? Oh, good. Thank you. Claire? Anyone else? All right. Let me know. Let Mark know if you're interested in that. It's a good way to get sort of your teeth into what's going on.
And there are currently no hands at this time for
Thank
public
you,
comment.
Martina. All right. Moving on to committee reports. Fire Safe Marin. You've been busy. Do we have? Yeah. Hi. Hi, Jen.
Good afternoon, board members. Jen Gauna. We indeed have been very busy lately. We are hearing from residents, and we're hearing from a lot of residents. And across the board, we're just seeing a ton of traffic, people looking for information, people asking questions, and we've been able to be very responsive. We've also heard a lot from the media and have been able to make the connections to the right people. In your packets, you have an update from us for December. I noticed that our November activities are not within your packet, so I would love to be able to submit that. But Meg and I are both here to answer any questions in the reports that we've submitted.
Great, thank you. Those are in the agenda if anyone hasn't seen that. Any questions on Fire Safe Marin? To Fire Safe Marin? Oh, Julie has a question.
I noticed, I read the packet carefully, and I noticed that you all are planning for another Ember Stomp. And I just wanted to have you remind the directors when that will be so they can get it on their calendar.
Yes, so Saturday, September 6th is the date that we are planning for it. And we are just initiating our pre-planning right now. And we're really looking forward to some of the things that we're planning for.
Great. And I'm sure they'll take any special requests.
Of course.
Okay, any other questions? Bruce?
Great report. And I think we've communicated, this is Bruce Goins here. I have been asked to give a series of presentations to Nevada Rotarians on hazard mitigation work that we're currently doing. And what work, in essence, it's Mark Brown and I have worked on this presentation before. It's a modification, but folks want to know, what we're up to, and really the take-home messages is, what can you do? But what's lacking really is then the community organization piece. And would you be able to be present and for perhaps a handful of half-hour presentations to fairly large audience of active and concerned citizens to talk about community organizations and actions and tools and resources?
Yes, we'd absolutely welcome that. And we did see your message. And if we didn't get back to you, the answer is yes. And I think we are huddling internally to just decide who the best person is to send. But yes, you can count on us to be there.
Thank you. We'll take advantage of your kind offer.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions, requests? Okay. Any public comment on this item?
There are no hands at this time.
Okay. I don't see anything else at the board. No motion required. Update on the operations committee. Do we have anybody who wants to do operations?
Within the operations committee, we met in December, and we'll be meeting again on January 23rd. And that's when we're going to choose a chair and vice chair for this year and also go through the tools. So definitely invite all of you to listen in if you'd like. And then we'll also review some of those tools or all of those tools with you at a future board meeting. But the operations committee is up and running and thinking through the strategic advice that they provided last year and revisiting that. One of the things that we're working on, and staff is helping with this, so thank you, Stephen Peters, who's working on this actually today. We're going through all of the projects that have appeared in previous work plans and taking a look at how they fall in under each of the strategic measures that the operations committee provided, not only the goals that are board approved, but also individual strategic measures that the operations committee provided to the ATC previously for work plan development. So we're sorting them out to see how we're doing and how we're addressing each of those. And that'll be part of the discussion on January 23rd.
Thank you. And just for our new members as well, if you are curious about what happens at an operations committee meeting or the ATC meetings, they're all available online. And you can go back and review those meetings. Any public comment on this item?
There are no comments at this time.
Thank you. No other comments from the board? No motion required. On our agenda, there are some listed information items for you to take a look at. And do we have any items for future agenda?
I have something. It's actually not a future agenda item since we have a couple of new members and most of us have been sitting on this board since the beginning of time, which I think was March 2020 or May 2020. It might be good to do a new member orientation, and maybe that's just an informal sit down with Mark to go over kind of how we came to this point and some of the ins and outs, and they can ask questions, because I think we have 3 new board members.
Yeah, we actually have a full onboarding packet and pair up the new member with an onboarding partner. So both the new council members have received their packet. I give them homework. I make them go through the homework.
Make it that hard?
Oh, yeah. And then we recommend a coffee chat or a lunch with their onboarding partner. And then I recommend meeting with me be last, because it allows them to have an opportunity to go through the packet, develop questions they want to ask of me. And so it's been a while since we got to exercise it. So I actually made quite a few changes to the onboarding packet before we sent it to the new members.
Sounds excellent, but I don't like the idea of homework.
And Director Schlesinger, you will be matched with an onboarding partner now that we know that you're part of the board here.
Is that possible to share that onboarding with the rest of us?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Yeah, I'm very curious because I'm working on a policy for onboarding new council members in general, so.
Great. Absolutely. All right. And with that, I would say we are adjourned, and our next meeting is February 20th, and we will see you there. Thank you.